Italy comes to the rescue, this time approving a bailout of the third largest bank in the country. A 20 billion euro fund will apparently be there to support the banks who are falling rapidly right now. The ECB's assets are now at 35% of the Eurozone GDP. The ECB owns 9.2% of the European corporate bond market as well. This is doomed to fail. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We're going to get into Italy today. We'll talk about Europe and all the problems that exist there at this time, beginning with this right here. Italy's cabinet has approved a state bailout for the country's third largest bank. So we're looking at this here. Obviously, this has become a very serious issue. Has it been bail-ins or bailouts? What is the question? I have always said that there will be both. Expect more bail-ins to occur. Cyprus wasn't the last time that would be achieved, I assure you. And we even had to talk about this in Italy before as well. So the prime minister there said his government had authorized a 20 billion euro fund to support Italy's embattled banking sector. I would say it's a lot worse than that. The announcement came after they failed to raise a 5 billion euro from private investors. Nobody wants to invest in something that's sinking. Do you want to invest in the Titanic after it hit the iceberg? That would be a little bit risky, I would say. And of course, couldn't be done, so the government comes in and saves the day. That's how it always works. And if they didn't, then of course the ECB would have been there to save the day as well. You don't have to worry about that. The question is, when it all comes tumbling down, where will you go? See, in 2008, we had a problem where the private sector was failing, and that's still going on today. And the government came in to save the day. However, this next time, it's when the governments fail. And that right there, everyone, is what nobody is prepared for. Okay, the Italian bank said it would request a capital injection from the state to stay afloat. There you go. It's saying, please help. That's what that means, capital injection. Under new EU rules on bank bailouts, the bailout will entail a forced conversion of the bank's junior bonds, many of which are held by small investors, into shares. And this here is when you experience something that really shouldn't happen, because individuals are going to get hurt by this. Not necessarily in this act right here, but you're looking into the future. And what I would say is that you will have the government taking over, nationalizing banks and everything else. And in the case of retirement accounts, for example, what if they can't pay out? 10 years from now, they say, we're completely bankrupt, can't pay out, sorry about that, but that would cause a backlash, right? So instead, what if they give you just a future dated bond? What if they said, look, we're not going to take your money away, but you got this future dated bond, it's just as good, but you can't cash it in right now, or you're going to receive this massive penalty. So we'll give you this instead, hang on, don't worry about it. And that buys them some time into the future, and of course, they'll never pay out. That's what I see happening, not just in the US or Canada or wherever, but basically all around the world. It's a global program, a global policy. Look at their stock. After the financial crisis, towards it, you had this big run up, and then as things came tumbling down, they never recovered. There was a little bit of a blip on the way up as sort of assets, equities, and pretty much everything found its way back up. It really didn't go up significantly higher and declined here. Now think about that, how bad this has gotten. And it took a long time, if you really think about this. It really did take a long time to fail. It failed, as far as I'm concerned, back in 2007. And it's just been rotting. It's been sitting there. There's been a stench, and nobody has been talking about it. All of the banks are in this same position. This is what's not being discussed in the mainstream media. They're all failures. They are all failures. It's just that right now, this has basically sank to the bottom. Do you want to wait until it sinks to the bottom? What if the mainstream media admitted, just as it was after the crash actually happened, the financial crisis, too late, of course, until it was so blatantly obvious. They said, here are the cracks, everything's coming down, we need to bail out the system. Well, what if they had that same sort of admission, but it was for what's happening right now, where the banks are insolvent and so are the governments? Well, of course, you would have panic, you would have chaos. You can't do that. But that's the truth. Look at this. This is insane. The ECB balance sheet versus the Europe GDP. The balance sheet has expanded so dramatically when you look at it versus the GDP of Europe. The GDP is declining significantly. And you know what's increasing is the amount of money that's being printed. Sure, the dollar amount or the euro amount supposedly going to taper, but look at it in relation to something else. That's what's funny about it. Look, the way that they have manipulated everything, your $1 today is basically worthless. However, 50 years ago, that was something, and 100 years ago, that was even more of something. The dollars have lost their value. So you really relate something in relation to something else. That's what they do with currencies, the foreign exchange markets, of course. But look at this. The ECB doing what it needs to do. And everyone thinks that at this time where there is no QE in the US, this is a global program. You can have the money printing taking place in Japan and Europe, and that can flow outwards. It can flow into the US assets, pumping up those markets, the US dollar. Or you can have the Fed printing up money and have it flow into Europe, into Japan, into China, wherever. Okay? It doesn't need to be all simultaneous. And that's been proof since the financial crisis. There's a lot of proof since then. Italian banks. Now look at this right here. The bailed out bank is the red line, and you could see how drastic that has been. But in this particular trading day, the other two large banks here, one being Unicredit, has been quote-unquote stable. And the general thought is that the government will be there to bail them out should there be any problems. But they're all insolvent. So why in the world you as an investor would want to be into these assets at all? Why take that risk? Do you want to be that red line? What's the difference between Unicredit and the bank that got bailed out? I mean, yes, one is bigger than the other, but they all have the same exact problem. So when people tell me that they've invested in, but they're going to just pull out at the right time, that to me just says that you think you're smarter than the market, and maybe you are. But what I'd like to teach is where there is risk, there is fragility. Where there is fragility, there will be a crash. Very risky. And then, of course, connected in with that is Spain. Spanish banks have decided, or they had to, give back billions of euros to mortgage customers after a final ruling by the European Union's top court. Bank share tumbles as much as 10%. That's very serious, and it happened immediately. Think about that. A decision like this, and all of a sudden, your assets cut 10%. Borrowers who paid too much interest on home loans predating the May 2013 Spanish ruling on so-called mortgage floors are entitled to a refund from their banks. Now, that's a good thing for those individuals. However, the individuals who are invested in these companies are going to surely be hurt by this. And this is the type of thing that I've seen many times before. You've seen it as well. I don't have any faith in the system, and I hope you don't either. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Now, while I didn't prepare a scary face to show you at the end of the video. Just think of Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke in a hot tub together. If you like that image, then give me a thumbs down. If you found this video informative, then you'll like my book even more. I've got diagrams, I've got charts, I've got everything to make this complicated subject very, very easy. So head over to Amazon, where they have a look inside feature that allows you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it.